Thank you for joining us for Finding God in Video Games Rewind, as we're taking a look back at the original Metal Gear Solid and a very, very enigmatic character, Cyborg Ninja. And when someone's introduced with the name Cyborg Ninja, they're kind of destined to be remembered more for their suit than who is inside it. This character was nameless and faceless for much of his violent journey through the story of the one and only Metal Gear Solid. He literally carved his way through the campaign, offering very little to explain his agenda or his motivation, seeming content to simply leave a trail of carnage in his wake as he progressed towards an impossible to determine end goal. Neither friend nor foe, this enigmatic warrior seemed to be the only character who was not interested in a lengthy discourse with our player-controlled avatar Solid Snake. But this being a video game and all, we know that the reveal of who he is and what he's really after is going to be revealed in due time. Clues were peppered throughout his brief appearances, and within these glimpses the pieces began to fall into place. Neither truly alive nor truly dead, as much machine as man, this conflicted individual seemed to be scarcely in control of their actions, despite the incredible lethality that he demonstrated. The conscious choice of seeking out pain is but one crack revealed in his armor, and the phrase that he whispered while slamming his head into the ground still haunts me with sadness, as he confided to his former comrade turned enemy Snake, "I am losing myself." Sadder words may have never been spoken in a video game, as this nearly invincible juggernaut reveals that his greatest battle lies within. It's not until we're knee-deep in the final boss battle with Metal Gear Rex that he chooses to show his actual physical face, and within this reveal, he chooses to shine a light on his full motivations and his struggle inside. In a heartbreaking revelation, we learn that the poor soul trapped inside this machine is none other than our old friend, Gray Fox. His indestructible exterior merely masks his pain as he recounts his unwilling rebirth as a machine-human hybrid, scarcely in control of his mind and actions. But this is not what haunts him. As a former soldier turned villainous vigilante, this is not the source of his internal conflict. Something much deeper and more relatable to all of us lies at the heart of his pain. Gray Fox lived his entire life on the battlefield, and the collateral damage of his exploits was merely part of doing business as a professional soldier, until his hardened gaze fell on a child who was now orphaned because of the actions he took. Responsible for the death of her parents, perhaps for the first time the realization of the consequences of his actions caused the sharp pain of regret to override his training. He chooses to adopt her, whisk her away from the battlefield, and raise her as his own. But those actions did not dull the pain, as he lives with the constant daily reminder that the life she was now living without her parents was because of him. And his shame at the role that he played in their deaths caused him to never reveal this truth to her, for fear that she would see him as the monster he truly is, instead of the kind benefactor he's seeking to become. This is where the rubber meets the road for me. I can't really relate to being a genetically enhanced superhuman robot ninja. I'm not sure most of us can, but the inability to move forward from past mistakes is all too real. Others may see the ruthless efficiency of the machine that I've created to house and protect my shattered soul, but within lies a shell of who I once was, a force that leans towards self-inflicted pain and destructive behaviors, a person very much in danger, like Cyborg Ninja, of losing myself. So now to the real question. How is it that a child of God, born again in a committed daily relationship with Jesus, can forgive others and offer grace to everyone but their own self? Have you ever felt that way? A facade built to showcase strength and confidence, merely masking the uncertainty and self-loathing contained within? I'm kind of preaching to the choir on this one. I'll confess I've spent much of my life trying to foolishly earn the forgiveness and grace that's been provided to me for free. It's interesting that in our current day and age, just about any digital or physical bookstore, Christian or not, has a massive self-help section, and many of these books are written to provide assistance with the challenge of forgiving ourselves. I say it's interesting because the Bible seems to be kind of mute on this topic, almost as if the authors never appeared to consider this to be an area we might struggle with. With all of the wisdom provided to us from writers like Paul and Peter, men who were clearly familiar with the concept of past failures on a magnitude far greater than most of us will ever taste, Why do we see so little on this subject? Surely the Bible, the source of all answers, has within it a response for the challenge of forgiving ourselves, right? So let's lay a little groundwork. In 1 John, it's made very painfully simple for us, establishing that every one of us have sinned, but if we're willing to confess these sins to God, He is faithful and just to not only forgive us, but purify us as well. So does that mean I'll forget what I've done? Well, let's see what Paul says in 1 Corinthians. In the middle of his magnificent epistle, he stops to remind us and himself that he was once an enemy of the church, an active persecutor of this thing that he now calls family. But just as quickly, he allows the grace of God to not only cover his sin, but free him from his guilt, as he points past his failure to what God's grace is doing in him now. It is through, not in spite of his past failure, that he is able to offer grace freely to everyone that he meets. And finally, the, patron saint of those who have made mistakes but earnestly desire to move forward, King David himself, writes the famous words found in Psalm 103, that God removes our transgressions as far as the east is from the west, meaning that our failures are moving in a continual direction of separation from us and where we're going with our lives. So if all this is true, why don't we feel any better? Why do we still struggle to move on, to forgive ourselves, to accept the grace of God, even if we're able to freely offer it to others? Perhaps it's because we missed a crucial point in the correspondence between Paul and his protege Timothy in 1 Timothy 1. Paul, who clearly remembered all that he was, not only accepts the forgiveness of God, but sees that in this, Paul was made an example to others, a case study, that Christ came to save all without exclusion. And in that context, Paul chooses to deny his failures the ability to define him, but instead allows them to showcase to others the incredible grace that he was shown. He shines a light on his shortcomings, using them to illustrate the absolute depths of the mercy of God. This is the secret that David found, the mystery that pulled Paul and Peter out of self-loathing and into full service. Our enemy would like nothing more than to silence us through our guilt and our shame, reminding us of all the reasons we should be disqualified from service. He knows our true value, and the last thing he wants is a bunch of Pauls and Peters running around changing the world with their testimony. Like our cyborg ninja friend, we can choose to allow our guilt to occupy our thoughts until they consume us, or we can choose to celebrate the freedom we have received and shine the light for others to follow. It took a long time for me to realize that all of my failures were actually taken into account by God when He forged my destiny, and His plan for my life was built with those in mind. When we see our mistakes, our transgressions, and our sins as a vital part of how we can now share the full depths of the love of Christ to others, we are set free from all of the chains that the devil uses to keep them holding us down. So let's not hide the pain. Let's embrace the grace that has freed us from that previous life and shine the light into every dark secret that we've tried to keep. The Lord knew our past when He chose us, because when He prepared our path, all of our mistakes were still in the future. And just as He did with Paul, He still chose us as the perfect vessel to do what only we, complete with all of our perceived baggage, would ever be able to do. I've been a rebellious son. I've been an ungrateful boyfriend. I've been a selfish husband. I've been a misguided father. I've been an absentee friend, and so much more. But I will not be confined to those descriptions or allow my future to be defined by those past failures. Rather, I will accept the myriad of moral failures in my past, just as the woman who chose to wash Jesus' feet with her tears in Luke 7. I have been forgiven much, and I will choose to serve and love Him much. And if we look hard enough, there's someone who will cross each of our paths in life with a matching set of luggage to what we used to carry. And this will be how we can go ahead and show them how they can also be set free.